Today we're 100% speedrunning Plants vs. Zombies, which includes 50 levels in adventure mode, 20 minigames, 18 puzzles, and 10 survivals, so let's start with 1-1. In this level, there's only one lane and one plant, the pea shooter, so pretty obvious strategy of planting them as soon as we get sun. Then in 1-2, we get 2 more lanes and the sunflower, which produces extra sun. So we want to place 6 sunflowers as soon as possible and use pea shooters when zombies start getting in our lanes. This setup lets us always have enough sun to plant another pea shooter once their cooldown timer is up. Now for 1-3, we get cherry bombs and the zombies get cone heads. These guys take more damage to defeat, so when we see one, we'll usually try to place 2 pea shooters in that row, and it's not really a problem. Then at the end, we can use a cherry bomb and hit all 3 lanes to end the round really fast. Next in 1-4, we finally have a full 5 lanes and the walnut, who doesn't really help too much just yet. But since we have 5 lanes to protect and money hasn't been introduced yet, we'll want to let 1 lane of zombies go to a lawnmower. This insta-kills all zombies in that lane, so it's really powerful and gives us more time to plant sunflowers. Then once we have 2 rows of sunflowers, it's time to go all in on pea shooters, and we'll cherry bomb the last wave like usual. So yeah, pretty basic stuff so far, but don't worry, it gets much harder, especially once we get towards the end of the speedrun. For now though, it's minigame time. Every 5 levels we get a minigame, and this one is walnut bowling, where we throw our walnuts at the zombies, and the walnuts can ricochet to hit more. We also sometimes get the Explodo Nut to do area damage, which is helpful for extra speed. Now back to normal levels. In 1-6 we get the potato mine and pole vaulting zombies. The potato mines are really cheap, so we'll want to plant them early on to kill the first few zombies, giving us time to focus on planting sunflowers. Then when we have 2 back rows of sunflowers, we can start building up our pea shooters and use potato mines whenever we see stronger zombies. Potato mines are also nice to stall the pole vaulting zombies, since these guys run really fast until they jump over a plant, so we'll use that a few times too. Then at the end, cherry bomb like usual, which we'll be doing for almost every level, so I'll stop mentioning it for future levels. Now on 1-7, all that changes is we get a snow pea, which slows down zombies. Not too useful, but might as well plant a few. Then on 1-8, we finally have bucket heads, which are zombies with a ton of health. Thankfully, we now have chompers to deal with them. These guys will eat the zombie in front of them, chew on it for a while, and finally be ready to eat some more. They're one-shot kills, so we'll use them on any bucket heads we see. Next on to 1-9, we get a hold of repeaters, which we'll start using instead of pea shooters. Repeaters cost twice as much as pea shooters, but they also do double damage, so it's pretty worth it. And all that means is we need to stall just a little bit more at the beginning to get more sun before planting our repeaters and completely demolishing everything. So that means we have 1-10, another minigame. In this minigame, instead of buying plants with sun, we get them through a conveyor belt. The only real strategy is to keep the plants we don't want to see on the conveyor belt, since once we have 3 of the same plant that we aren't using, the game gives us less of them. But yeah, that's World 1. Let's go on to World 2. In these levels, the theme's nighttime, so we don't get any natural sun coming from the sky and can only rely on sunflowers. Thankfully though, the game also gives us puff shrooms, which are free, low-range plants. This means the beginning of 2-1 is planting a few sunflowers and as many puff shrooms as possible, since they can take care of all our enemies. The only real enemy to worry about right now is the newspaper zombie, who uses his newspaper as a shield and then goes faster once you take it out. But he goes down pretty easily with 3 puff shrooms. Near the end, we start planting a few pea shooters and use the sun we saved up to cherry bomb the rest of the enemies. Oh yeah, this level also introduces money, which will let us buy stuff from Crazy Dave later on. And we can get that money by either killing zombies or having lawnmowers left at the end. Anyways, on to 2-2, we get sun shrooms. These are basically a cheaper version of sunflowers that are better for night levels. This is because they cost less than sunflowers at only 25 sun, but they only produce 15 sun until they mature, which takes a couple minutes. But still, the same strategy as 2-1, except we'll be using repeaters when we can instead of pea shooters, and chompers when we see bucket heads. Now on to 2-3, we get the fume shroom, and the zombies get screen door zombies. Fume shrooms have the ability to shoot multiple zombies at the same time, but have limited range. They're also able to shoot through screen doors, making them the best option to deal with them. So we want to make sure we plant a few of these on each row, and it's an easy level. Next for 2-4, we start out by getting a 7th plant slot from Crazy Dave for $750. This means we can take 1 extra plant from now on, and this time we'll be bringing the Grave Buster. This plant takes out the graves in the yard, which is nice because now we can put a plant in that spot. It also gives us extra money, so we almost always want to get rid of as many graves as possible. Same general strategy though, and it's time for the next minigame. In 2-5 we get to whack zombies with a hammer. It's pretty fun. We also do sometimes get sun from the zombies, which we can use to take out gravestones, but not too much strategy for this one. Then for 2-6 we get the Hypno Shroom and football zombies. Football zombies are super fast and have a lot of armor, so they're usually a problem. Luckily though, we can just hypno shroom them, which makes them join our side, and there goes that problem. Now for 2-7 we get scaredy shrooms. These guys are only 25 sun, but if any zombies get too close to them, they stop shooting. Thankfully, all we need to do is plant them in the back, and we're pretty fine for most levels, so not too much to worry about. On to 2-8, we get the ice shroom, which we'll almost never use, and now we have to deal with disco zombies. Disco zombies are super annoying since they'll continuously spawn more zombies around them. This means we need to take them out as soon as possible by using a bunch of puff shrooms or just cherry bombing them. And in 2-9, we finally get the doom shroom. This is an amazing plant because it's kind of just the cherry bomb but better. It hits every lane, so we'll be using it for every level that we can right at the end. The only problem is it leaves a crater and we can't plant anything in that spot for a while, but it's never too much of a problem. Finally, to end the night levels, it's time for some more conveyor belt. Yeah, not too much to say again, just plant stuff. One thing I should mention though is the nighttime plants only work during night levels, so in World 3, we'll have to take a break from them for just a bit. Anyways, on to World 3, where we get a pool and a 6th lane to protect. For the 2 pool lanes, we can only use our regular plants if we put a lily pad down first. Thankfully, much less zombies come to the pool lanes, and they usually come much later, so we have plenty of time to prepare. So I like placing a bunch of pea shooters on land first, followed by a few in the water. Then for 3-2 we get the squash, but I like calling him a thwomp. Thwomps are basically just our next insta-kill plant, but they're pretty cheap and you don't have to wait for them to pop up like the potato mines, so we use either thwomps or chompers to deal with bucketheads, and our repeaters can deal with pretty much everything else. And here's where we're going to take a break from adventure mode to do a couple minigames, starting with the slot machine. In this minigame, everything we get is completely based off our rolls, which cost 25 sun. To beat this level, we need to collect 2,000 sun, but we need to protect our lanes first so we don't die. I got terrible luck here though. Usually I like getting around 5 sunflowers before I stop spinning, but the game just kept giving me more offensive plants. At the very least though, we did get a diamond which is worth $1,000, so that was nice. But yeah, it took a bit longer than I would have preferred. And before we go back to adventure mode, we just have one more minigame to do right now, walnut bowling. And this is pretty much the exact same thing as last time, only a bit more difficult. So yeah, not too much I can say. The reason we're doing these minigames right now though is because we get extra money from them, and we'll use that money for some cool things like an 8th plant slot. Now on to 3-3, we finally need to deal with snorkel zombies. These zombies swim underwater, and you can only hit them when they're eating another plant. Thankfully, we can still thwomp or chomp them and hit everything else with our repeaters. Then in 3-4, we get another way to deal with snorkel zombies. Tangle kelp is another insta-kill, but it's really cheap and only used in water. Other than that though, same strategy as usual, and time for 3-5. But before this level, I like buying pool cleaners which make our lawnmowers more efficient in the water. Anyways, 3-5's minigame is yet another conveyor belt level, but this time the zombies are tiny. This means they're easier to defeat, but also faster and more annoying, which leads us to 3-6, where we'll be buying the Rake from Crazy Dave. The Rake is nice since it kills the first zombie of each level, giving us more time to set up sunflowers. It also lasts 3 levels, so from now on, we'll be buying it every time we run out. Then as for the level, we get introduced to Zombonis. Zombonis are super annoying since if you leave them unchecked, they'll run over all your plants and leave an ice trail which allows bobsled zombies to spawn. Luckily, we can just cherry bomb them or thwomp them, but this definitely won't be the last time we'll be seeing these jerks, including for 3-7. But yeah, this is the exact same strategy as last time. The 7th levels of each world pretty much never add anything. Anyways, we're on to 3-8, where we get to deal with dolphin zombies, and I hate these guys. They're kind of like pole vaulters where they jump over your first plant in a lane and then slow down, but they're faster and in the water. Usually a couple repeaters or a tangle kelp can take care of them, but yeah, it's a stressful level. Now on to 3-9, the game throws everything they have at us, and because of this, we'll be using one of the plants we got earlier, the torchwood. This plant is nice since if we plant it near the end of the lane, it increases the damage output of every pea shooting plant before it. And since we only need one of them for each lane, it's a good investment. Which means we're on to 3-10 and yay, another conveyor belt level. At least I can talk about the other plants we got in this world. First, the spikeweed goes down on the ground and does continuous damage to anything walking over it. Spikeweeds will also one-shot zombies and vehicles, though it sacrifices itself to do so. Next up is the tall nut, which is a walnut but tall, so enemies like the dolphin and pogo zombies can't go over it. And finally, we have the 3-peater, which shoots in 3 lanes instead of just 1. So yeah, we'll be using all these together, and we're on to World 4 and the fog levels. Now for the fog levels, we deal with the pool, the night, and the fog all at the same time. Thankfully, while the fog does block our vision so it's harder to see zombies, we can still plant things in the spots that are blocked. So we're basically going to be planting all our zero cost plants as much as possible, including our new one, the sea shroom, which is pretty much just a puff shroom but in water. Finally, we'll finish out the level by planting scaredy shrooms once we get enough money, and using a doom shroom for the final push. Next in 4-2, the game gives us the Plantern, which removes fog. We need to plant 2 of these, one on each side of the pool, and we can finally see. Other than that, exact same strategy as last level, and we're on to 4-3, which gives us balloon zombies. Now you're normally supposed to use the new cactus plant to deal with these, but since balloon zombies very rarely spawn in this level, we can just let any that do spawn go to our mowers, or beat them in the final wave with a doom shroom. But 4-4 has a bit more that spawn than 4-3, so this time we'll be bringing another new plant, the Blover, which will replace our Plantern. Blovers both blow away any balloon zombies on the map, and also get rid of the fog at the same time for a bit, so we can use them in all our same previous strategies, moving on to 4-5 easily. Which finally, it's time for not a conveyor belt minigame. This is vase breakers, where we break the vases with a hammer, and they contain either a plant we can use or a zombie. For the first one, we want to hit every vase, and each zombie will have a corresponding thwomp. Then for phase number 2, we'll use all our thwomps on the harder zombies, and the pea shooters on the regular guys. And finally for phase 3, it's pretty much the same idea as number 2, except we'll be using the hypno shrooms instead of thwomps, and that's another level done. Now we're on to 4-6, and we have to fight digging zombies. These guys dig under all our plants, and eat them from behind. The game wants us to use our newly acquired split pea, which shoots both in front and behind them, but instead we'll just thwomp them when they show up, and call it a day. Then once we finish this level, the game unlocks puzzles, so we'll be taking another break from adventure mode to complete 6 of them. The first one is vase breakers, and it's pretty much the same concept as before. Thwomps on the stronger zombies, pea shooters on the weak ones. Next level is to the left, where we get repeaters that shoot backwards. This means we'll want to use walnuts to stall stronger zombies, giving us time to either potato mine them, or just take them out from behind. And third vase breakers minigame is called Third Vase, where we do some more shooting behind action, but also get a lot more hypno shrooms. I had a very close call on this level because of some bad placements, but thankfully my ice pea shooter was able to slow down this buckethead enough for us to get the win. Which means now we'll be heading over to the iZombie levels. In this one, instead of being on the plant side, we're working for the zombies. So we need to place our zombies in the right order. Then when we eat a sunflower, we get extra sun from it. We have to eat the lawnmowers on every single lane, and once we do, that'll be a win. So for this one, I use a bunch of bucketheads and football zombies, since they can tank a lot of hits and usually end up fine. The only problem is thwomps, but that just requires a little sacrifice, and we're good to go. Next up is iZombie 2, and now we have screen door zombies, which are really useful against ice pea shooters since they can block their shots. That in combination with bucketheads makes for a pretty easy victory. And to finish out our little break from adventure mode, it's time for Can You Dig It, which gives us digging zombies. This level is simple since we can very easily take out plants from behind in lanes without the right defenses, and use a few bucketheads in the others. We'll be beating the rest of the puzzles later on, but for now it's time for some more adventure mode with 4-7. And yeah, same strategy as usual, if it ain't broke don't fix it. But 4-8 gives us the new problem with pogo zombies, so it's a bit more complicated. These zombies will jump over all your plants and go straight for the house. They aren't too bad right now since worst comes to worst we use a mower, but they'll be a lot harder to deal with later on. And that leads us to 4-9 where the balloon zombies are back, so it's time for some more blovers. Then for any pogo zombies, bucketheads, or anything else that carries metal, we can use magnets which steal their equipment. The magnet is one of my favorite guys. So time for our 8th minigame level, and this time it's a conveyor belt, but we can only see when lightning flashes. Yeah, I don't like this level. But again, might as well explain some of the plants I haven't used yet. So we have pumpkins which shield a different plant and directly protect them, and the star fruit which shoots in this weird 5-way pattern. Now after finishing up 4-10, it's time for the last world of adventure mode, which are roof levels. Starting out with 5-1, we have a pretty simple strategy of planting a bunch of sunflowers and using cabbage pults to hit any zombies that come early on. Cabbage pults are nice because for roof levels, plants like the pea shooter can only hit far away zombies if they're on the 5th row or later because of how the roof curves, but cabbage pults have an arch so they can hit from anywhere. We can also only plant something if there's a pot there, so it limits what plants we can use. This means our strategy is to place a bunch of cabbage pults and place our repeaters on the 5th row since we don't have any extra flower pots yet. The roof levels also introduce these annoying bungee zombies which steal plants from us, but they usually aren't too much of a problem. Now we're on to 5-2, but before we get to the level, we need to buy roof cleaners, which are lawnmowers for the roof levels. Then at this point, we're going to completely abandon all the plants you would normally use for this level. Instead, we'll start by using insta-kills like the potato mine and thwomps to grind some sun up early. Then we'll go fully for repeaters since we gained the ability to place our own pots. Next for 5-3, it's almost the exact same strategy, but we have to worry about ladder zombies which are really fast and use ladders to protect themselves. They can also climb over things like walnuts and pumpkins, which we'll see later, but for now we can just use insta-kills whenever they show up. And on 5-4 we finally get the coffee bean, so it's time to have some fun with this level. But first we want to buy the gloom shroom from Crazy Dave. Then we'll start out pretty simple with grinding sun and using insta-kills to keep us alive. After we get money though, we'll go to row 8 column 4 and place a pot, fume shroom, gloom shroom on top of it, and finally a coffee bean to wake up the gloom shroom, which allows you to use nighttime plants during the day. And finally we can protect the guy with a pumpkin to keep him safe. Then after waiting a bit, we can do the same thing for column 2. Gloom shrooms are great since they do a ton of damage and hit 3 lanes at the same time, so yeah, it's a pretty easy victory. And at the end, we can also bring back the doom shroom since the coffee bean will wake him up too. So pretty fun level, but now it's 5-5 where we cherry, chomp, cherry, chomp, cherry, chomp. Yeah, that's the whole thing, not too much to say. But at least it gives us garlic, which will make our gloom shroom strategy even better. See, for 5-6 we can place our gloom in column 3 and then put garlic in column 1, 3, and 5. This makes it so all the zombies get moved to column 2 and 4, allowing the gloom to hit them. We can also type in the code FUTURE, which gives the zombies cool sunglasses, and for some reason that makes their garlic eating animation a little faster. We love tiny time saves. Only problem for this level is the catapult zombies, since they'll constantly run over our garlic, but at least they can be dealt with by some thwomps, and we can replace the garlic pretty easily. So we'll just keep building our gloom army, and it's an easy win. Next 5-7 is literally the exact same strategy, but 5-8 gets interesting since now we have to deal with gargantures. These are huge zombies that don't only take 1 insta-kill, but 2. They also really quickly destroy plants and will throw their imps once they take enough damage. So for this level, we'll largely use the same strategy, but be ready with some doom shrooms and other insta-kills to make sure the gargantures don't get too far. Then 5-9 is largely the same, just more gargantures and more stress, but after that we finally made it to the last level of adventure mode, 5-10, which hooray, another conveyor belt level, but at least this one's kind of interesting. First though, let's go over some more plants we haven't used yet. We got melon pulse, which do a ton of damage, and corn pulse, which will sometimes stun enemies. So we're hoping for as many melon pulse as possible to beat Dr. Zomboss, since in this fight we need to defend ourselves from all the zombies he spawns until he lowers his head. Here we'll use either an ice attack or fire attack, which we can counter with a jalapeno or ice shroom. This is also the only time we can actually damage Dr. Zomboss, so I usually save up as many jalapenos and ice shrooms as I can, which allow for some quick damage. And after just a bit longer, adventure mode is finally done, but we're only about halfway through the speedrun. So now it's time for everything else, starting with our remaining puzzles. The first of which being chain reaction. In this puzzle, we get a bunch of exploding zombies, which break the vases around them. The only zombie that's really worrisome here though is the football zombie, who we need to hypno. Other than that, we can just use a bunch of backwards repeaters and some puff shrooms for everything else. Then we have M is for metal, and I like taking this one a bit more slowly. That way I have more time to react to the zombies we get and can use insta-kills on the difficult ones. This level almost went wrong though when we got one lane with a ton of zombies, but thankfully I had an ice pea shooter who slowed them down and we got it done. Our 6 face breakers is Scary Potter, where we get tall nuts to block zombies, repeaters to shoot from behind, and torchwoods to amplify damage. I like placing a tall nut on every lane, which makes it a pretty easy victory. Next it's time for Hokey Pokey, and in this one our only source of damage is spike weeds. So we can either place 3 spike weeds in a lane, or place 1 in a walnut in front of it, which will take them out in a probably very painful way. Then we have another chain reaction, and this one is pretty much just about getting all your tall nuts and thwomps out to deal with the pogo zombies, and finishing everything else out with repeaters. So again, not too bad. Now finally our last vase breakers is Ace of the Vase, which is by far the hardest one since it has a garganture. I like to slowly go from the back lane of jars to the front lane, giving me more time to react to which zombies appear. Then when we see a garganture, I immediately put 2 insta-kills down to take him out. After that, it's all about hoping we have enough firepower to deal with everything else. This one took a few tries, but we finally got it, and we're moving on to more iZombie levels, starting with Totally Nuts. In this level, there's a bunch of walnuts at the start, so we need to use ladder zombies to go over them. This makes it so other zombies can also climb over the walnuts, so we'll want to put 1 in every lane, resulting in an easy win. Next up is Dead Zeppelin, where we have balloon zombies. We do want to make sure we get plenty of sun before using them though, so I decided to send a buckethead out first to attack some sunflowers, followed by balloon zombies on any lanes without a cactus. Then on the lanes with a cactus, we can use a bungee zombie to swipe them up and finish it out from there. Which means we're on to Me Smash and we finally get to use a garganture. But before that, we use a couple pole vaulting zombies to skip the garlic in this lane, resulting in tons of easy sun. After that, it was time to start sending out the gargantures to deal with everything else, and we won pretty quickly. Now our 7th iZombie level is Zomboogie. Get it, since we have disco zombies. Anyways, this level is full of insta-kill plants, so we want to send out weak zombies to get rid of them. This is also why the disco zombie is so good here, since he'll spawn extra guys to sacrifice before sending stronger troops to take the other plants out. Then after that, we have to do 3-hit wonder, where we get tons of zombies to choose from. This one is pretty simple since most of the sunflowers were in the bottom 2 lanes, so I focused that first, while making sure to get rid of any magnet shrooms quickly since they would remove our buckets and mining picks. Then once they're gone, everything else is easy. Which means we only have one puzzle left, and this by far is the hardest. To begin, I want to restart the level a couple times to get good sunflower placement, since there are tons of things trying to take us out here. Once I got some good RNG, I focused on the bottom 2 lanes first by sending out some bucket heads, and slowly came for everything else little by little. Near the end, I almost messed up completely with my imps, but thankfully I had just enough sun for a football zombie, and that allowed me to just barely take out all the other lawnmowers. So now with all the puzzles done, we can move on to minigames, starting with its raining seeds. In this minigame, we get all our plants from the rain, and unlike a conveyor belt, they'll disappear if we don't use them fast enough. My main strategy is to get a damaging plant on each lane as fast as possible before very slowly adding up forces over this level's 4 flags. This one takes more than 10 minutes and feels really good to finish. Then we're on to Begooled, where we have to match plants. But to be honest, I suck at puzzle games, so my general strategy is to do random moves while I look for a match, and it works surprisingly well. The only thing to worry about is not letting the zombies eat any of our plants, since then we would need to use sun to replace them, so we'll upgrade our plants as we go and make them stronger. Finally, once we reach 75 matches, we're on to Invisigool. Yep, we're back to the mercy of the conveyor belt, and we don't even know where the zombies are coming from since they're invisible. Luckily, we can still make educated guesses based on if they're eating a plant, or if one of our plants is shooting from that lane. So in general, it's another one where we need to fill every lane up with plants and hope nothing terrible happens. Following that, we go to Seeing Stars, where we have to fill the star pattern on the yard with star fruit. The best strategy here is to use 0-cost puff shrooms to delay the zombies while we plant a total of 13 sunflowers. This way we give ourselves extra time, and all it takes is a few sacrifices. Then at the end, everything gets super easy since we have damage coming from all sides, and we're on to Zombiquarium. In Zombiquarium, we want to collect 1000 sun to buy the trophy, but we can also spend money on additional zombies and food to keep them alive. The optimal number of zombies is 9 for this minigame, and then we can just sit back and feed any zombies that need brains, giving us the win. But now it's time for the second Begooled minigame, Begooled Twist. In this one, instead of moving the plants over, we need to twist them clockwise. But the thing is, I'm in no way smart enough to do this minigame fast, so instead I just randomly click on different plants, and it usually works out. Now let's head to Portal Combat, another conveyor belt level. But in this one, there are portals which transport both our shots and the zombies to different places on the map. The most crucial thing to do is make sure we have a cactus on every lane, and after that, there's not too much that can go wrong. Next, it's time for Column Like You See 'Em, which is normally one of the easiest minigames. In this level, you plant a whole column of plants at a time, and usually to beat this, all you need is 3 melon poults. It's so easy that it's even written in the guide as one of the places to go use the bathroom, so that's what I did since I was 5.5 hours in. But of course, tragedy struck while I was gone. We got super unlucky RNG, and the zombies took my bottom lane. Then, even though I made it back in time to put some more pots down, I got overwhelmed by all the zombies, and we got a really heartbreaking loss right at the end of the minigame. So yeah, that sucked. Still, I tried again, and beat it with only 2 lanes of melon poults this time, so that just goes to show how unlucky our first try was. It is what it is though, and as long as my goal of a sub 10 hour time was still possible, I wasn't stopping, so we're on to Big Trouble Tiny Zombie. For this minigame, it's just more tiny zombies like earlier in the run. The only change is we get a lot more cherry bombs, which gives us insta-kills, and a lot less plants to actually shoot the zombies, but this level is pretty much never a problem. So we're on to Zombie Nimble Zombie Quick, but before that, we're gonna buy our 9th plant slot. This will allow us to beat the rest of the run much more comfortably, including this level, where the game moves much faster than normal. So the plan for this is to get gloom shrooms on the 2nd and 5th rows, that way the whole map is covered. We do need to end up using a lot of insta-kills at the beginning of the level, but once the setup is done, we're pretty set. All that's left to do is add more gloom shrooms to the other lanes when we can, and plant some star fruit to help take care of any dolphin zombies that get through the glooms. So yeah, the speed of that one was pretty stressful, but now we can relieve that stress with Whack a Zombie. And like last time, we'll just whack zombies as soon as they spawn, and finish it without much problem. Now it's time for Last Stand. In this minigame, we start out with 5000 sun, but that's almost all the sun we'll get for the entire minigame. So my strategy is to place 2 gloom shrooms in the water lanes, 6 magnet shrooms, a few torchwoods, and a bunch of repeaters. And with this setup, we'll be good for for all 5 flags. The only thing to worry about is the ending wave, since zombies will often spawn past the gloom shrooms in the water, but that's why we also save some sun for a doom shroom at the end of each round, before collecting an extra 250 sun, which will pay for next round's doom shroom. And while the strategy can seem a bit risky, as it's fairly easy to lose magnet shrooms, we still take home the win, and we're on to Zombotany. In this minigame, all the zombies are cursed and have plant heads, so they shoot back at us. But luckily they don't do that much damage, so right at the beginning I can just get a couple lanes of sunflowers and place my gloom shrooms in the 2nd and 4th rows, while of course using insta-kills to deal with any of the guys that get through. Then once this is set up, there's no more problems. All we need to do is use an insta-kill on any walnut zombies, and everything else goes down without much fight. But in Zombotany 2, it gets a bit more complicated because now we need to deal with the jalapeno zombies and squash zombies. So for this setup, I like to place my glooms back 1 row, giving me more time to react. Then whenever there's a squash or jalapeno, I have time to react to them and take them out before they kill a gloom. So yeah, same general strategy, just a lot more stress. But hey, for the next minigame, we're back to a fun break with walnut bowling 2. And this time we have giant walnuts. These are nice since they take out entire rows of zombies without ricocheting, and even prevent pole vaulting zombies from jumping over. So them combined with our exploded nuts gives us a pretty comfortable win. Now at this point, even though we haven't finished our puzzles yet, we're going to take a break to do some survivals, starting with survival day. In the survivals, we need to beat 5 flags on the map. In between each flag, we can switch what plants we take with us. So for the first flag, my plan was to simply get as many sunflowers as possible and start building up some gloom shrooms. Gloom shrooms will be the majority of our damage early on, so we want to get as many as possible up, while also keeping pumpkins around them for protection. Then once we got a few up, the first flag ended, and it was time to switch our focus. Since for the next flag, we want to focus on getting repeaters, torchwoods, and magnets out. The repeater torchwood combo obviously does a ton of damage, and the magnets get rid of everything metal, so at this point we're getting pretty overpowered. And for the rest of this survival, we're just going to keep removing sunflowers and adding more repeaters until we come home with the win. Now let's go to survival pool, where we have pretty much the exact same strategy, just with more lanes to deal with. So like last time, lots of sunflowers early on, and glooms for the first flag. Then we can start getting out magnets, repeaters, and torchwoods to raise our DPS, and win in a similar easy fashion. Don't worry though, once we get to the hard survivals, the difficulty goes up a lot. Another thing I should mention is before this survival, I collected enough money to buy an imitator plant, which basically lets us take 2 copies of the same plant. It costs the exact same as the original and helps deal with their cooldown time, so that lets me place a lot more pumpkins down, making my gloom safer. Third survival is survival fog, and for the first flag we want to almost solely rely on puff shrooms and the imitator puff shrooms for damage. That way we can plant a bunch of sun shrooms, save a bunch of sun, and put our planterns down with plenty of time to spare. Next for flag 2, we can finally start focusing more on damage by placing glooms and magnets in the farthest rows, and repeaters and torchwoods a bit closer, and that's yet another win. Now let's go for the roof survival and buy the Gatling Pea from Crazy Dave, which we'll use a little later. For the beginning of the level though, you know the drill. Sunflowers and glooms down as soon as possible. We'll change up a bit this time though and add in some garlic. That way we can focus even more on sun production. Then, just like usual, the next few rounds will include repeaters and torchwoods, but they'll also include umbrella leaves. These plants repel any bungee zombies, so they're no longer able to steal our plants, which is pretty vital for roof survivals. Finally, near the end, we'll start turning our repeaters into Gatling Peas, making them shoot 4 shots instead of 2, so we're even stronger now, and that's our 4th survival win. And for the last easy survival, we got Survival Night, where we'll be using the same strategy as Fog by planting a bunch of puff shrooms and sun shrooms before adding magnets, repeaters, torchwoods, and Gatling Peas. The only real problem for this level is it will constantly make new graves at the end of each round and can destroy one of our plants, but it's not too big of a deal. So yeah, that's the easy survivals, but before we get to the hard ones, we got some mini games to finish, starting with Pogo Party. This minigame is pretty simple since again we're relying on our glooms, but to get them out we need a ton of sun, so we'll bring both a thwomp and imitator thwomp to take all the pogos out. Oh yeah, if it wasn't obvious enough by the way, all our enemies are pogo zombies for this level, except for a few regular ones at the end of each flag. Now after thwomping a few guys, we can start getting up our gloom shrooms and some split peas. The glooms will do most of the damage, but the split peas are important for finishing the zombies who barely get by. and yeah, it works out pretty good with us just slowly increasing our forces until we win. Then it's time for Dr. Zomboss's Revenge, where we need to fight this dude again. It's pretty much the same concept as last time, except a bit harder, and sometimes you get really bad RNG, but overall, not too much to say, it's just another boss fight. So let's finish up the minigames with Bobsled Bonanza, the most stressful minigames in Plants vs. Zombies. Luckily though, we have a great strategy for it. Now before anything else, we need to buy the Spike Rock from Crazy Dave. Then in the minigame, we'll plant a bunch of sunflowers like usual, but eventually bobsled zombies start showing up, and here's where we use either our jalapeno or imitator jalapeno to take out the whole lane. Now we want to place a spike weed down and a spike rock over it. This combo doesn't just do more damage, but now it can get run over multiple times by cars before dying, so it'll protect us from any zombonis. At this point, we'll want to continue the strategy for all of our land lanes, except one where we want a Zomboni driver to come down for just a little bit, and then we can place a row of spikeweeds. With this setup, all the bobsled zombies will come down this one row, and they all die really quickly, making us beat this minigame super fast. Yeah, this strategy feels really good to pull off. And that means all our minigames are officially done, so the only things standing between us and victory are the hard survivals, starting with hard survival night. Now the immediate difference for hard survivals is there are 10 flags instead of 5, and we need to beat 2 before we can switch our plants instead of just 1 flag. But for the most part, our strategy really isn't going to change too much just yet. We get sunshrooms and glooms down first, then we focus on repeaters, torchwoods, and magnets. The main difference is the zombies are much harder, so sometimes we need to make compromises. Like here, there are balloons, so we need to bring blowers. Here, there are catapult zombies, so we need to bring spikeweeds. And here, there are gargantures, so we kinda just need to lose a lane. Oops. That was fine though, since it was right at the end, and I could finish the remaining zombies out with a doom shroom, but these are the types of stressful situations we'll be in for the rest of the run. Now we might as well get our other nighttime survival out of the way, so let's do hard survival fog. But honestly, not too much I can complain about here, since it went unusually well. The only real problems were the digging zombies who took out my sunflowers at the end, but luckily I had enough sun to eliminate them before they could attack my repeaters, and we got our second win of the hard survivals. But now it's time for hard survival day, and here's where we really started having problems. Now this is supposed to be one of the easier survivals, but things don't always work out how we like. It starts out like normal, with the only difference being we want extra sun, so we'll use an imitator sunflower along with a regular to make this nice pattern. Then of course it's time for the gloom shrooms, magnets, repeaters, torchwoods, and gatling peas like usual, and everything was going fine. Well, at least until flag 6, where the game decided to give us zombonis, and there goes all our gloom shrooms. Still though, our repeaters are untouched, and we can now put down some spike rocks, so it isn't too bad. Well, until flag 8, where they gave us so many digging zombies that they completely destroyed our back rows. So yep, that's a nice 15-minute time loss. Sub 10 hour was still possible though, so we continued on. This time I also learned my lesson and put my gloom shrooms back one lane so we can protect them from cars, and of course the second time around we got really good luck with nothing going wrong the entire survival. Way to rub it in. But we only had 2 survivals left and 45 minutes to do them. It was winnable, and now we're on to hard survival pool. Before that though, we finally got enough money to buy both the cob cannon and twin sunflower, but I'll talk about those on our last survival. Anyways, for this one, it's our same old strategy. Plenty of sunflowers followed by glooms, repeaters, magnets, and torchwoods. I did make a slight deviation though by adding in split peas, since I wasn't losing to digging zombies again. And we got our second to last win with 24 minutes left on the clock. So it's time to get serious, and time for hard survival roof, where we're going to be switching up our entire strategy. Well, at least once we make it past the first 2 flags. To start, you know the drill, some glooms, some garlic, and tons of sunflowers. But then on flag 3, things get interesting since it's finally time to use the cob cannon we bought from Crazy Dave. This plant first requires putting 2 kernel pults down before placing it on top of both of them. Then we need to wait a fairly long recharge time before the corn gets ready, and we have a reusable explosive for the rest of the level. So obviously these are going to be our main damage, and we want around 10 to feel really safe. Also, since we'll be getting rid of most of our sunflowers, we can transform them into twin sunflowers. We'll also plant some umbrella leaves to deal with the bungee zombies, and then completely focus on the cob cannons. Once we finally get 10, the fun really starts, since we can constantly do this rhythm of fire 2 cob cannons, wait a second, and fire 2 more, never running out. Yeah, it's really satisfying. And eventually, after the last zombie dies, we collect our golden sunflower trophy and end with a time of 9:58:59. So yeah, that was exhausting. Subscribe if you enjoyed. Bye.